It's me, I know. Unfortunately, I haven't done a video for a while, uh, but I hope to improve in that matter. Uh, so I wanted to give an update with my health and my life in general, what has happened. Um, so the last time I gave a health update, I told that I got some EPO, Epoetin shots. If you want to hear more about the details of it, I'm going to put a link of my recent video underneath, so you can look that one up. So last time I didn't yet feel the EPO shots. In fact, I had gotten the EPO shot, and after the first shot, a week later, my hemoglobin levels had dropped even more. So the EPO idea was to force my body to make red blood cells, because I had very severe anemia, and at the time of the very first shot, my hemoglobin levels were 7.6 units. I think it's milligrams per deciliter, but I'm just going to say units. And then I got a shot that day when I got the blood test, and then a week later I had also scheduled another blood test and shot and visited the doctor, and I was so weak that I wasn't feeling very well, and I slept in, and I actually gave a call to my doctor saying I don't think I can come in because I'm already late. I had relatively early appointments, and I was very weak, and I was waiting. So sometimes when my days are very hard, I would wake up and I would take all my medications and just wait for them to start working. And I basically told the doctor that I don't know when finally they're going to work, and it's by that time it's going to be late, and yada yada yada. I think I need to reschedule. And then I got a call back saying, no, you have to come, you need that shot, we need to do all these things. Just whenever you come, just come. It doesn't matter that you're late, just come. And which actually is very typical in oncology department, that you have appointment, but they don't really keep up with the times. It's very typical that you have to wait hour here, hour there, hour everywhere. So if you show up hour later, it doesn't sometimes make any difference. So, and it didn't make any difference that I was quite late, and turned out when they did the blood test, my blood levels had dropped even more at that point my blood was 7.1. And the doctor said, well, no wonder you had so much trouble getting in, because you're just half the normal levels of red blood cells. You just wonder you're walking at all. And so they did the second EPO shot, and then after that they did another one and another one. So I totally got 4 shots with a week apart. And so recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, my blood level were very high. My hemoglobin was 9.9. I haven't had that high hemoglobin levels over a year ago. So the highest was like 9.4 or something like that, and that was right after I had a blood transfusion. So yeah, actually the week my blood was 7.1, they actually organized blood transfusion again, even though we hadn't planned it. But because it's like my doctor hadn't really I think my doctor didn't really have experience giving much EPO to other patients, because she didn't expect my blood to still go down, so she didn't expect to have to give me blood. And so they organized giving me blood like as soon as possible, basically, which was 2 days later. That's how slow they work. which probably that level my blood was like below 7 units because it was dropping very fast. And it just gets very, very dangerous because at some point you can go into sepsis because your body parts need oxygen, and red blood cells are the ones that take oxygen into your body parts, and then I think CO or CO2. I'm so stupid. They take back, right? I can't remember all the details. Anyway, now I really feel wonderful. I have had high blood hemoglobin levels for a few weeks now, and it's almost like it feels like I have been underwater, and now I feel like coming up, like just being alive again, like waking up, because when you have very, 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 very severe anemia, everything you do is extremely hard. Physically, it's very hard. You move a little bit, you're out of breath. You take few steps here, there, out of breath. You need to lie down, sit down. And I actually gained quite a lot of weight. I think like 15 pounds within, I don't know, half a year. I don't know, maybe less, 3 months. Because I didn't really eat. I didn't really have appetite. And I ate quite little. Like maybe I have never eaten so little because I didn't really have any appetite. But because I wasn't really moving at all, I still managed to, I guess, eat more calories than I needed. Because you really, it's very easy to eat more than you need, right? Just sandwich here, there, and 200 calories more a day will very quickly result weight gain. So now I think I'm going to lose weight quite fast because I wake up earlier. I have actually managed to stop taking my sleeping pills. So I have been taking Ativan for quite a long time because I wasn't moving much. And a lot of the medication I take really messes with my sleep, and so I had really trouble sleeping. Like I would, without the medication, I tried a couple times and I just didn't sleep at all, like not even a second. I didn't fall asleep. I was up all night, and then next day I would fall asleep with a medication because I didn't want to feel this way again. So, but now I have been able to sleep without medication a week, which is incredible because my head is much more clearer. I wake up much more earlier. I move around. I get stuff done. It feels weird. I started to work properly again. Not maybe I don't go to work by car because it's quite hard. I'm not there yet. But I can work from computer. My head is very clear and I can get stuff done, which is very, very important to me because for the self-esteem, if you worked all your life and suddenly stop and you're a young person, you feel like completely useless, like you don't have any value. And I guess that's actually what can happen to people who retire, that a lot of times when people retire they kind of degrade very fast, right? And I think that's what happens. You kind of feel like you're completely useless. You don't need to do anything. You can't do anything. You don't do anything. And it just gets worse and worse every day. So one thing that really bothered me, and what also happened, was that I wasn't able to clean the house the same way I used to be able to do it. So all my life I used to clean the house during the weekend, like either both days or just one day, like even like 8 hours straight. But I would get the whole house cleaned up, all the laundry done, all stuff done for the next week, so that next week is just to put stuff back to its place. But I wouldn't really do laundry or anything like worry about floors and stuff like that. So, and that I wasn't able to do anymore, right? For a long time. And even now, I'm not able to do that. I cannot work physically all day long to clean up the house. Physical work is very hard for me. Also, my mind is still not quite there in a sense of doing things. It's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of like depression is like when you have to do one thing after another. When you're very depressed, it's hard to switch to the next thing. Like, I don't know, you kind of procrastinate. It has improved a lot, and so now I hope I get the house quite clean, especially because my daughter is going to have her 7th birthday in a few weeks. Yay! And people are going to come over, so I'm hoping to get things much nicer, cleaner. And then, of course, I need a much better plan, something that worked for me for decades hasn't worked for me now after I got sick, and it has been very like bumpy road in a sense of how to do the house, clean the house. And like my palliative care doctor, when I complained about it, she said, well, you just have to get used to the mess. And I'm like, oh. So now I have to figure out a plan that would work. So probably like, Monday I do laundry, Tuesday I do floors, something like that. And then also like really think it through, put the plan down in writing. And also as far as future comes, because I'm not going to be able to stay very capable for a long time. I'm going to go down, at some point I'm going to deteriorate again, and I might not come out of it anymore. Then I probably need to hire somebody to help clean the household. And so I have to really think, I have to get the estimate how much it's going to cost. I have to really figure out how to have the money for that, and basically plan it out. And so that, because I don't want that when I'm going to get really bedridden again and really weak again, and I can't keep up the household at all again, then I don't want, and my daughter lives in a mess and thinks that that's normal. That to me, I didn't grow up in a messy household, and I don't want my daughter to grow up in a messy household. Also, it's just very bad for overall your mind. Also, my hubby can't stand it, but at the same time, he's not really capable of handling the household this way that I used to do everything. And I think for him, really, it was quite a shock. I think he didn't realize how much I do around the house, that I constantly put everything back to its place, I constantly keep up with things, and when I got sick, it just got worse and worse, and mess started just accumulating, and he just couldn't figure out what's going on. I think he just didn't realize how much I do housework. Yeah. Anyway, so I have to get back to it, and I really I need a good plan for it, because it's not that you just kind of clean up this week. It's something that is kind of annoying and boring thing. So, and you have to do it constantly, right? Every week. It never ends. So if you have a very sustainable plan, then, and everything constantly is done the same way in a routine, it's much easier to keep up with it, and as opposed to if you do it sporadically here and there, some major cleanup or something. It's better to do it all the time, continuously, and not so much at the time, maybe. Anyway, what else? Yeah, the household has really bothered me a lot. So you notice that I don't have makeup on. I was hoping to get also ready because I have to go pick up my daughter soon, and I want to put some makeup on and go to the civilization look, not looking with this deep, deep dark under eyes. So as I usually do, I talk about my health a little bit and also at the same time get ready. So one more thing that I wanted to do, I wanted to talk about is my family health history. Now, I have a stepfather, so I don't know anything about my biological father's medical history or family history, that side. But I do know my mother's side, and my mother's side has a lot of cancer. In fact, when I was growing up, I used to tell my friends that I either live very, very long time or I die of cancer, because usually in our or mother's side, people would just die in cancer. Uh, like my grandmother, my grandfather, both my mother's side died in cancer. My mother had breast cancer, but luckily she caught it very early. It was stage 1 and she's still okay. She had it very early at age, like I think it was 40 or 39, something quite early. Now, but it wasn't as early as I had. I was 30 years old when I was first diagnosed with cancer. So because my mother had it like a decade later, that's why I didn't really think about really checking myself, which was really stupid. Now, when I think back about it, that I should have really, well, nobody really told me and I didn't think about it. But I should have really had tests done and, keep an eye on it. Okay. Now, so I put primer on. Next I'm going to do my foundation, if I can find to decide what foundation. I think I'm going to do this Lancome this time. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about actually mostly was my mother and my grandmother. So my mother's mother. My mother's mother, so my grandmother, she had cancer when she was early 20s. So when my mother was actually 2 years old, she was diagnosed with lymphoma. And I didn't know a lot of the details actually until this summer, when this summer I was in France for 3 weeks, and actually I spent, out of 3 weeks, I spent, well, all those 3 weeks I had my mother with me. The first 2 weeks I had my daughter and my hubby with me, and then my daughter and hubby went back to United States, and then I stayed for 1 week in Paris with my mother, like kind of stuck in a hotel with her. And anyway, I had a very good chance talking to her about a lot of things. And one of the things I talked to her during that time was I wanted to know specifics about my grandmother's cancer and how she died and things like that. So when my grandmother died, I was 4 years old, because my biological father didn't care about me. He just left my mother and me and just kind of disappeared from our lives. And so my mother lived with her parents. And then she found during that time, after I was born, and she lost contact with my biological father, she found my actual stepfather, and they had a relationship, and actually eventually they married. I had my sister, and so I consider my stepfather my father. And actually my relationship with him after I got diagnosed has really improved tremendously, because I talk to him and my mother almost every day. Yeah. Anyway, getting back to one thing I really wanted to talk about was that, so right, was my grandmother's cancer. So she got diagnosed right when my mother was 2 years old, and then she got treatment for a few years, and it kind of went back, which I didn't realize, because I thought that, for some reason I had thought that my grandmother had had cancer like continuously throughout my mother growing up, but that wasn't the case. The cancer went back, and my mother actually grew up quite happily in a household where she was the only child. Her mother was a stay-at-home mother, which I guess because my grandmother was always home, to stay-at-home mother, I kind of assumed that her health was so bad that she didn't go to work, but actually I guess she just didn't have to. My grandfather was some kind of had a very good job, I guess, let's put it like that. It was Soviet Union time, but he was part of the party, the Soviet party, and then you had a lot of perks came with that, and I think he was like a boss or a chief of telephone company, because everything was owned by the government, and everything kind of depended on nepotism and who know who, stuff like that, and politically how high were and things like that. But anyway, my grandfather was a good earner, I guess, and took care of his family, and so my grandmother didn't have to go to work. Right. So when I was 4, right, I was living with my grandparents and with my mother, and she died, right? My grandmother died, and it was a huge loss to me. She had, so the cancer that she originally had come back a few years before, and right, she was basically dying now, and she managed to for several years. She was early 50s when she finally died, and I guess one of the details that was really, really hard for me to understand was that they didn't have a service to clean or take care of the dead people, which I don't really understand at all. So my mom says the day her mother died, she was feeling well, and she went away with my stepfather. I was left with my grandparents, and I went to sleep, and apparently I slept through the whole thing. And at some point, so my grandmother had something, I guess her heart gave up. That's what my mother remembers. And so grandfather was there, called ambulance, and decided that they don't resuscitate, which was, I think, a right decision, because at this stage the resuscitation doesn't really work, or even if it works, the percentage is very low, right, that it would even work. I think it was once read maybe 10% or something when people are like that sick, and then even if they manage to get the person back, the person doesn't really live that long, maybe only a few hours after that. So it's basically, it was a right call from my grandfather as far as I understand. And so after grandmother died, he knew where my mother was with my stepfather. They had started to move into their apartment, so my mother was there. And the crazy thing is, I don't know if he just left me there with a dead grandmother, or I guess he called the neighbor. I think my mom said that he called the neighbor to come and keep an eye on me while my grandmother was dead. So there was a neighbor keep an eye on me while I sleep. Right? Remember, I'm 4 years old. And then my grandfather goes to my mother to get her, like, because she didn't have phone, which is kind of crazy, but she didn't have a phone. He couldn't call her, right? She didn't have a landline. Those days it was very hard to get regular phones, even, which is kind of weird because my grandfather was like the boss of the telephone, so he kind of decided who gets it. And I guess it was so new that my mom and stepfather had moved into the new home that they hadn't really had the chance to get the phone in yet. Anyway, he went there to get my mother. So my mother came and back to his parents' place, and I'm still apparently sleeping there. And so my mother had to clean my grandmother. So my grandfather apparently was completely drunk at this point. He had started basically drinking, very typical during Soviet Union, right? Typical thing about Russians. And my grandfather had a little bit of Russian blood. His mother, my grandfather's mother, is complete Russian, and I guess those kind of traditions were from that side. Anyway, he was apparently completely drunk, kissing and hugging my grandmother while my mother had to clean her mother. And of course she said that, when you die, all those body fluids that are inside come out, because the body kind of just, relaxes, things come out. Which I don't understand. I kept asking, I don't understand, Mom, why didn't you just call, some service that, they take your mother away, embalm her, stuff like that. And she says there were no such kind of services. Anyway, she had to prepare her mother for burial. Anyway, I have to go back to my mom and really ask about it. So basically my mom had very, very, very severe trauma. And she has had it for years. Maybe, I guess as long as I remember, I think she has probably had that very severe trauma. Can you imagine having to do something like that? I don't understand how this, but that was just these days. I have like 5 minutes left to get all my face done and finish up with the video. Okay, so I'm going to put some primer on my eyelids. I noticed that if I don't put a primer on my eyelids, it's just pointless to put any eyeshadow because it just flies off very quickly. However, if you use a primer, it's like it will last till next morning if you want to. It just sticks no matter what. Okay, I have primer on. So now I'm going to use Tartarus. I think I got it with BoxyCharm, the Beauty Box BoxyCharm, because they always send these nice eyeshadow palettes, and I think one of the latest ones they had was this one. It's very nice. I'm going to use this color. It's kind of a base color for the eyeshadow. it's not very highly pigmented, but it's very buildable, which I like, and there is not that much fallout, which I also like. So you just kind of keep working. It's very nicely blendable, blending very nice. So I think this is very good, very nice eye palette. I would say I approve it. Okay. And then I'm going to use a little bit darker one. What is this? Maybe not good. The corners, outer corners of my eyes. Give it a little bit darkness. These two brushes that I'm using are also from some sort of beauty box. I don't remember which one, which is typical. I just don't remember what I get. And it's SL Missy Glam blending brush, angled eyeshadow brush. Very good. I really like when beauty boxes send me brushes, because I hate having to spend money on brushes. Brushes are so expensive. Okay, I feel like they are overpriced often. No. And now I'm going to try. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I'm going to try to do eyeliner. These are also from some sort of beauty box. They're the same. Ayako. I guess they're from two different beauty boxes, but the same item. Which sometimes happens actually. They send the same item. Like 1 month and some other month I get another one. Okay, let me see. I'm going to use a little help to just think how to do. So I'm going to do under eye area, which I didn't do before. Sometimes I do it before I put on eye makeup. Sometimes I do after. I don't know really how I decide. It's kind of completely random what I decide to do. Using my fingers right now. Sometimes it's better to do it. It's just today I didn't use a sponge because I noticed that so during the winter times the house is a little bit colder, maybe not that much, but just a few degrees, and I noticed that my makeup is not going on as well as it would when it would be warmer. Like during the summer, when I love using the sponge the most, but the problem is that like when I use a sponge, it just doesn't go in like as well. If it the temperature is just slightly colder, it kind of stays more on top of my skin and doesn't look as natural, right? And so that's really a big problem, right? Because how your foundation sets, how your concealer sets, it's very important. If it doesn't set and just sits on top of your skin, it looks really not good. Okay, let's see if I can use a sponge today. I really prefer to use a sponge, but if I can't get it right, I have to go over with my fingers to kind of warm the makeup up a little bit. I have to go. I really have to go. So the school is really angry if I'm too late, right? They get, even if you're just late for 5 minutes or something, few minutes, they get very pissed off at you. So I'm going to do my lips in the car. I'm just going to put a little bit of, actually I think I have time to do the lips. Oh, quickly. Because my eye makeup is so heavy. I'm going to do very quickly little bit of I think maybe I even can finish it. Oh. Should have been quicker. It's messing with my eyes too long. And then, okay, let's see if I can do it. Oh. I'm going to do very quickly a little bit of highlight. That will take just a few seconds. Nothing too much. Corners of my eyes. Now, and only thing really I need to do is mascara. Let's do mascara really quickly. It's one of the samples. I don't even know which one. I love using sample mascara. Thank you for being with me. I have to really run.